Okay, so first of all, someone told me I should be posting when our next meeting is. We have a meeting twice a month. Once our monthly meeting, and then 2 weeks later, about 2 weeks later, we have like a quick peek meeting at a project that we're doing. So I don't know if you can read that. My handwriting's terrible. But our next meeting is Thursday, February 20th, 7 to 8 p.m. at a project we completed at 1644 North Thompson Drive in Bayshore. Okay, so the topic for today is there is a what is the word I'm looking for? An asymmetry, a sort of a disconnect in the current minds of a lot of sellers as to what's going on in the market. So, if you'll recall, the market took a real dump in the crash of 2007, 2008, maybe 2009. So now we're in 2020. So what's happened is that the higher end properties have been on their way down for a while. The lower end properties are doing well, but there are very few areas where the market is increasing. There are some, but very rare in Long Island. It's few and far between in Long Island. But a lot of sellers have this conception that that they're going to get more money for their property than their neighbor did, and they're going to get more money than they heard, and there's a general misconception. So it's a very common theme that we see in this business all the time, is that people think their house is worth more than it is, and as investors, we're not paying full retail. So our situation is a little bit difficult now because I think that there's going to be a correction. I don't know how much, I don't know when, but at that point, once the public perception catches up and people say, oh, the market's going down, we're in a much better position then to buy properties. So the question is, what do you do with something that happens all the time, which is a seller who says, my neighbor sold a year ago for $400,000. My house is a little bigger; it should be worth $500,000. That's the kind of thing that happens all the time. So the real answer is to have really good sales skills. So we use a method from a guy named John Martinez, and a lot of his stuff is available for free online. His website is midwestrev.com. We've been to his boot camp, and his systems are extremely counterintuitive. So what he is saying to you as a real estate investor is when you're going to buy a property, you're supposed to be pushing away, right? You're supposed to be right up front with saying, I don't know if this is going to work for me, right? Which is the opposite of 99% of what other people are going to do. They say, oh, we buy cash, we'll close in 15 minutes, we buy anything, right? And then they drop the bomb of the price, and the guy's like, I didn't even want to talk to you from the beginning because I felt like you were a used car salesman. That's the kind of thing that happens all the time. So the answer to how to deal with seller misconceptions and seller perception problems is to really dig into what the reason is they're selling. Now, we've all got to understand that a lot of sellers are not going to sell us their houses, right? Traditionally, about 1 out of 10 properties that sell in any given area are going to sell to investors, and 90% are going to go on multiple listing service and sell there. But so a lot of people feel like they are going to qualify the prospect, the lead, and make sure that this guy is really into it. But the truth is that that only goes so far, and when you get there, you find out really what's going on. The key is to find out what is their pain point and what the deal killers are, right? That's John Martinez's concepts of pain and deal killers. So if there isn't enough pain, right? Sometimes you talk to a seller who's really just not interested. I don't know, you called me, I got your postcard. If there isn't enough pain, it's not going to happen. A deal's not going to happen. But you can discover that during the sales process and figure out what's going on there. And you have to dig. And I struggle with this all the time because for me, if someone has an obvious reason, like they just inherited the house, I don't get into the pain enough. And I really should be finding out, is this a problem? Is this something you want to keep? And you push away by saying things to the seller such as, why don't you just keep it? Why don't you rent it? Why don't you list it? Those are the things you want to say. Now, obviously, as a new investor, you're scared out of your mind about saying those things because you're saying to them, why don't you not use me? And why don't you not sell to me? But if they're not going to sell to you, right, if they want top dollar, if they don't have enough of a motivation, then that's where they're going to end up anyway. And you jerking around with them thinking you're going to somehow convince them to sell to you is a foolish endeavor. The way to really get into it is to push them back. And that's something that John calls I don't think he named it. He got it from some deep science training, but it's called psychological reactance. And that is that we all push away from what we're pushed to. So, for example, when you go on a used car lot, even if you're looking for a lot, even if you're looking for a car, I'm sorry, and a guy comes over and says, "Can I help you?" You say, "I'm just looking," even though you want a car, but you just don't want to be sold. People don't want to be sold. But if someone gets in, when you get into with a seller, really, what is going on here, right? You live far away. Is this difficult? I always ask what the taxes are, and somebody owns something free and clear. Trying to get into the expenses so they have an idea of what kind of pain is going on here. And this is something that, I need to work on more. But this is the answer. In the current environment, certainly, where there's this disconnect between what sellers believe is perception, and again, there always are sellers who believe their houses are worth too much money. But I think in today's market, there's more of that because we've been going up for so long. The market's been going up for so long that they just think it's going to continue, and they come to you and give you a crazy number. So the number has to be almost the last part of the sales process. The part of the sales process that really matters is finding out why they want to sell, and then finding out what they want to accomplish with the sell. I don't know if you hear that, but they're doing some sewer line work in my office. So that's got to be. And again, I'm far from perfect with it, but that's what you have to do. You got to dig and dig and dig and exacerbate that pain. You almost have to expect the sales process when you're face to face with a seller to be a negative experience on some level. And your goal is to take them away from that negative and to explain to them why selling to you, even for a price that's less than they believe they can get or should get, is worth it because it's going to take away their pain. And holding on to something when we explain it. And again, we're not manipulating people. We can't manipulate somebody. This is not a hard sell. This is just exposing to somebody that maybe taking less money and saving time and effort and resources is the better move for them. And if it's not, they're not going to sell to you. We're not going to have a sale. So we are not trying to push people to do something that's not good for them. We're trying to push people to do something that is good for them. Because a lot of people just don't understand that holding out can last a year, and then they may end up right back where they were before selling to somebody like you. And then in a year from now, to be honest with you, we're in 2020, I would not be surprised if there's a wholesale drop in pricing all over the market because it's a cyclical thing and it's bound to happen. So those are my 2 cents today. It's not 10 minutes, we're about 8 minutes, but I really believe that sales training, which is completely different than marketing, which is getting leads, is something that everybody should invest in. I've seen Todd Tobeck's training, which is pretty good. I think John Martinez's training, MidwestRev.com, is the best training. I don't get any referral income, but I think the guy is the best. He's actual real estate investor and trains people how to do the selling. But I think you have to almost understand that there's a system to how you do it, and that the people who have a system on how they talk to sellers are going to do a lot better than people who just wing it. And most people in this business just wing it. They go in there and tell them how fast they can close. I've said before, that's really the wrong thing to say because for some people, they need a place to go. And the only concern they have is that the only reason why they're not selling it on the market is because they don't want to be on a buyer's timeline. When you come there and say, I can buy this house in 2 days, they get scared out of their minds. You want to say, I can close whenever you want, whether that's quick or whether that's takes longer. But again, I know we're almost 9 minutes. Having a system on how to speak to sellers is a huge thing. I'm a firm believer in it, and I think it'll help with a lot of what's going on in the market today, where a lot of sellers just have a misconception of what their house is worth due to what they see and what they hear.